Yes, hello, folks. Welcome to the weekly Manchester United podcast. I'm your host, as always, Phil Brown, joined with my excellent co-host James Rhodes, of course, from Muppeteers. On this Monday morning, another weekend of no Manchester United football. Can't say I enjoy these empty weekends, but this is the consequences. This is the price of our sins. We've lots to talk about today. We'll get through some of your questions. That gives us an opportunity to at least be in touch with some of our listeners and give you opportunity to ask us some questions and we'll get to them. We'll cover a number of other things making headline news at Manchester United this last week, as there's always stuff making headline news related to United. Plenty of stuff. We talk about ticket prices. We talk about, of course, United new club academy head of coaching, who we just brought over from City. We'll talk about the incredible emerging talent that is JJ Gabriel. Amongst a number of other things. TMZ, first of all, how you doing, man? How was your weekend?
It was good. We got a rare, and I do mean rare because it's been a weird year. It was like our second snow of the entire year, which for Colorado is like insane. It's been nothing. It's been 60s, 70s, all winter. We've had like it's crazy, and we had our first like actual big snow of the whole year here in March. So went sledding with the kid, and that was
Yeah,
shoveling and shit.
best times, TMZ. You go do your stuff. You know, if you're a parent listening to this, and maybe you're a parent for the first time, I have an 18-year-old. How quickly those times go by, and
Yeah.
you skip up 1 year and think, they're young, I've got plenty of other years, and all of a sudden they're young teenagers and they don't want to do it anymore, and you get these rare moments in life to spend time with your kids and just switch off from all the shit that bogs us down in life. It's honestly, my kids every other weekend. I had them this weekend. I have two daughters, and of course they bring their friends over. So I'm a judge in a beauty pageant, and my daughter's playing this song on repeat, and on about 3,000 times. And then I got stroked yesterday, conned by two guinea pigs. So we give a deep after in this fucking house of turtles. I didn't know the difference between a turtle and a tortoise. I found out dogs and everything else. But yeah, it's the same here. We were getting 95 degrees in February. It's ridiculous. Just we could have done with some rain. But anyway, James, lots to get through, of course, with Manchester United. It's been a relatively quiet weekend, of course. I don't know, did you watch any of the FA Cup matches?
I watched a little. I watched some. I watched some of the Wrexham versus Chelsea one, which
Yeah,
was
brilliant game.
really close. It was a great game from Wrexham. They nearly did it. Certainly got a taste of the joys of VAR. Now, don't you, when you come up and play these games, because they had a red, they had a goal chalked off, they had quite a few bits of drama with the replay to take the wind out of your sails, but they did a hell of a job, all things considered. I mean, come on, you wouldn't expect them to be anywhere near it. But
Mansfield. I was thinking about, I was watching that Chelsea Wrexham game and watching the VAR, rule out that equaliser,
yep.
and the sense of injustice, all that. And then I thought about United Coventry in the semi final when United were 3-0 up against Coventry, 3 each, and then Coventry scored a goal. It was ruled out
And it
by
was a
the greatest of
toenail.
margins. And how
Yeah.
justified I felt at that.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's not a
It's
goal. Because if you remember, everyone after it was like, this is not within the spirit of the game. And I now understood that argument a bit better because I was thinking exactly the same thing when I was watching the Wrexham Chelsea game. But
yeah.
it goes in your favour, you don't give a shit. But when it doesn't,
Yeah.
but just from that, you look at Mansfield, Wrexham. People that haven't played football just don't know how good of a football player you have to be to make it a professional level at all.
Yeah.
The biggest difference between a League Two, League One player, Premier League is just consistency and how you live. How not everyone, most people can't get up every day, eat right, sleep right, train, live like a monk, have no social life, and it doesn't matter how much you're getting paid, you're still a human. And that is honestly, there's the biggest, the hardest thing to do is to be that consistent. But on any given day, still good
Yep.
to see, Port Vale beating Sunderland. It's Mansfield against Arsenal. I actually got watched that game. Yes, and that's that. at 4 in the morning. But in some sense, maybe I'm reaching here, but there's not as much of an indictment on Ruben Amorim on losing to Grimsby. Grimsby lost 1-0 against the Premier League team. Was it Sunderland? I can't remember.
Yeah, they did, and what, Liverpool got knocked out, and a lot of crazy things have happened in the cups this year. But yeah, Grimsby actually made it decently well. They made it through the next round, I want to say, and then they got knocked out by a Premier League side. So, well, look, it was a bad game against. But I will always say this: forget Ruben Amorim. If it wasn't Onana in net, United would not have lost that game. Yeah.
When I was mentioned before in this podcast, going through a divorce, right? My ex was here the time United lost in the FA Cup. She's like, "Oh, knocked out in the first round again." I was like, "But like you in the Miss Chernobyl contest, you'd know all about that." It wasn't such a trouble. I was raging. Anyway, it's another story for another day. I did get that finalized on Thursday, so thanks to all of you for your kind well wishes. Actually, I wish you all the best. But it's been an interesting week. Filled with optimism going forward, Jamesy. We've unfortunately, as a result of this break, we've had to stew on that defeat against Everton.
Newcastle,
which predictably resulted in certain, takes after the game about how Carrick's not suitable for Manchester United. I don't know how you could make that assessment on one game. Reading the stats, Carrick's still top of the Carrick Post League, 2 points. So if the league make the Carrick took over, of course, I don't know why people don't take it into consideration that hasn't had to be able to sign a single player, and what level do they think Manchester United are? I mean, I think, JJ, we've actually found what our level is beyond the results. I think United are a top 6 team.
Yep.
Everyone's fit, right? If they have a small squad, which is, curated, it's been for a team that doesn't play football. They've 33% fewer home games this season, which of course is a massive drop in revenue, which I don't know if it's consequential or not with the ticket price increases. Again, it's the third 5% increase that has been implemented since any of us came in. That's fans, like 600 fans relocated from above the charting stand to accommodate executive seats. We'll get into all that. But these empty weekends means that you focus on other levels, other teams at United, and one of those teams, of course, is the under-18s with JJ Gabriel. And I'm going to start there, James. In some ways, it seems a bit tasteless for me and you, grown men, to be talking about a 15-year-old child, which is what he is.
Yep.
And heaping this type of pressure on him. But it is simply unavoidable. And if you're going to make it at Manchester United, especially if you're a prodigious talent, Ryan Giggs had to deal with George Best comparisons. And every level at United, you're going to be compared to the greats of the past. That's something you have to deal with. JJ Gabriel comes from a football family, so he should be in a good position to deal with that. But what a wonder strike once again this weekend from a kid that everyone at United just cannot wait to see in the first team.
Yeah, I mean, it's really impressive. And look, I think it's important to note that obviously, while you want to temper expectations, and like you said, you have a player who's 15 years old and all of that. The reality is that there have been players, and you kind of know it when you see it, when kids are coming through in that age group and they really have it. I would say that we've had a couple recently. Obviously, Kobbie Mainoo, when he was JJ Gabriel's age, he was already getting a lot of talk that this is a player who's going to make it. This is a player who's going to get to the first team. This is a player who's going to do it. Mason Greenwood, all other things aside and what happened, had a very similar arc to JJ Gabriel in this respect. He moved up to the under 18s at a very young age. He was a little older than JJ Gabriel, but I think just by nature of timing of birthdays, they were kind of in the same, they would be in the same grade or whatever you might have or, in terms of age. Moved up into their 18s, did a ridiculous job. Next season, he was in the under 21s, made his debut in the Premier League, as well as training with the first team very often. And then by the next season, he was the second youngest, I think, debut for United at that point in time, at the timing of it happening or whatever it was, but came right in and was immediately as good as a first teamer. And it's like, so yeah, you want to temper things because next season, it's going to be, it'll probably follow the same path. JJ Gabriel's not going to be starting in the United team next season a bunch and playing a bunch and all that. But when they're this good at that age, and he is that good, and it's not just United knowing that, because every big club in football is trying to get him. I think Nike have given him the biggest sponsorship or whatever deal you have ever for a youth player, things like that. It's real, and it's worth getting excited about because these are the things that are like, comes out of nowhere, and this is obviously something we have in history, and it's great for the football club. It's great for United and hopefully great for him, but you get a Beckham level player can come out of the academy and it's like, hey, what happened? You know what I mean?
Yeah,
It's like, you'll take it.
I'll be honest. I think he's, with Beckham, I hope it doesn't sound too controversial, but Beckham was a player with he was exceptional at one or two things.
Yeah.
This is actually something that makes him special, and where, he had a couple of things that made him an exceptional player. His delivery was exceptional. I mean, I remember Beckham's first season; he was magnificent, right? Just, I remember his goal away at White Hart Lane, top corner. I remember his goal at Blackburn. He chipped the keeper. But he didn't have enormous pace. I remember George Best, but he was notoriously cynical to times. I love Best, right? But he liked to talk about how Pally called him the best ever. Repeatedly, it's almost blasphemy here for me to talk that way about George Best, who absolutely idolized. But he said about Beckham, we can't. He can't, doesn't score goals. He's not quick. Doesn't have great ability on the ball. But he was brilliant with his crosses, brilliant with his set pieces, and he had a skill set that was simple but really, really effective at this level. That was, you talking about a guy that went to Real Madrid, but PSG, United, AC Milan, everything, and made the most out of everything that he had. JJ Gabriel, to me, is something that you can't coach. You get this street footballer talent, and by God, are football missing street footballers. Because, I've said this before on the podcast, people talk about Pep Guardiola effect. I don't think what we're seeing is the Pep Guardiola effect. I think what we see is the iPad effect.
Right.
I think the fact that young kids and everything that they do now is structured. There's no freedom anymore. No one's.
I know what you mean. Your kids aren't going out and playing like in the streets and doing this and like in the same way that they used to. Like you just don't see it. Any neighborhood you live in, you'll know it. They're not out playing the way we used to when we were kids, and it does change the way that they learn.
100%, right? And I'm looking at my kids and go, my kids have everything I didn't in terms of, luxuries. But I wouldn't have swapped my childhood for theirs because we had to create our own entertainment. And, I look at my kids sometimes as soon as their friends are going about how quickly they get bored and all their attention's being stolen. It's shortened their attention span. I mean, it's shortened mine. I mean, I don't care if it's a nuclear holocaust about to happen. If I see a video more than 3 minutes, I'm not watching it. Right? There's no way to shorten it.
I hear you.
And so, I see him ruling some other questionable websites too. But I think with we saw a perfect example of this with no VAR at Aston Villa, right? Whenever I can't remember the referee's name, gave a free kick when it was obvious penalty.
Yeah.
And you're looking at what technology is doing to the human brain. I drove a car a couple of weeks ago that was older, was reversing it,
No backup camera, right? It's like
and
it
I was
kills you.
waiting for the camera, and I almost hit, a basketball. It was like, and it just shows you, like, whenever we were young, we had Thomas Gage, right?
Yeah.
And you were like Christopher Columbus, getting the subway, right? But now
Yeah.
I don't remember how to get to anywhere because my GPS does the thinking for me. I think that it's having a negative effect on how the way our brains are working, and the way these young kids, they just look all the same in terms of their
Yeah.
skill set. They look like artists that were taught how to draw by paint by numbers, but there's no.
Right.
And I don't think, I think that the US was ahead of the world on that in terms of, what people don't understand here, it seems is how big this country is. Kids
Yeah.
can't go out and go to football by themselves. Everything's a 20-minute drive. Now Europe, everywhere else is caught up yet.
Yeah, for sure. And I agree with you because you see a like a freestyling way of playing that is what you want, you know what I mean? You want a player to kind of learn, to kind of develop, to kind of do everything that they can do rather than just be, color inside the lines all the time type of player where everything becomes so predictable and you're like, well, this player has this skill set and this thing, and it's like this is exactly what they're gonna do. But the real kind of excitement of football is oftentimes from those, game breaking type of players, these young players and players coming through who do something totally different. I mean, my favorite archetype of football of all time has always been Wayne Rooney for that reason, because you could never put Wayne Rooney inside a box and say, you don't even know what position he is. Even today, at the end of his career, after his career, nobody knows what position you call him. Is he a striker? Is he a 10? Is he a midfielder? Is he a winger? Because he just did everything and played the game with such an aggression and such a ferociousness and a creative, and it's incredibly creative in that respect, where you don't know what is going to
Yeah.
happen next, and those are players that break the game and that you just have to watch, and what you hope you get from someone like JJ Gabriel when you watch him at the youth level is like, it's like that. I don't know what he's going to do. It's not dribble outside, cut inside, shoot, dribble outside. It's something different. The finishing, the way he's been shooting, the highlights they've been, it's like shooting from wherever, whenever, different variety, all sorts of things, left foot, right foot. It's something. It is something.
The other thing too is you brought up a good point there. Um, but there's no more characters, right? One of the things that I
Yeah.
really love to do is watch Netflix specials on sports that I don't watch, right? Like the baseball, New York Yankees, Boston Red Sox play series. I don't care what you watch baseball or not. If you're not inspired by that story, which to me is a metaphor for life, they sit down 3-0, and then they just
to start over.
Sorry, we're having a little conversation off the air here because my microphone it's just some funny shit. Sorry. So, but what I was saying there is, if I love watching sports documentaries, right? The Red Sox, Yankees, unbelievable, but also the '80s era of Larry Bird, Magic Johnson, and we talk about characters. Where we see it, I think, with the likes of Rooney and stuff, when you get kids that are overcoached, they coach that aggression out of them. They coach that behavior out of them. And that is why you need, the salt in the soup, which is, street sports, where there is a natural aggression. Some of it's cultural, you come from certain places that have a certain grit and determination. You're a product of an environment. Sorry. And I think, if you look at football now, because of the way social media punishes them for having any type of personality or character, they're just all this homogenous, monoliths where there's, you go ask Lionel Messi, when was the last time you remembered an interview with Lionel Messi where he said anything?
It's like that, right? It's so coached.
Bullshit.
It's so like, I don't give it a hard time, but like LeBron James is a perfect example.
Yeah.
Is the most milquetoast vanilla personality you could imagine from the best player in the world. And you're going, where's the like, I want to hear something,
Where's the Muhammad Ali, right? Where's the, LeBron James is a guy that, when they get that level, they're just constantly marketing, and they claim to have this commitment to, social justice until it comes to criticizing one of their sponsors, right? And then all of a sudden that evaporates. There's no courage anymore. There's no one willing. But anyway, this is a result in my, I'm not a sociologist, but because of all these clubs are petrified of an individual that doesn't toe the line, and then you get, we lose characters in football and all sports. So great to see, JJ Gabriel have a bit of that street football in him. James, if he starts, he's such an exceptional talent. So obviously better, than his contemporaries at that age. He's someone that talent is not a question. Encouraging also some of the tweets from his father about everything comes in time, and about the right level, and where you don't feel under pressure to, this kid has to get in the first team as soon as he turns 16 or we're going to lose him. But James, he might be, if he, what did we say, 16 October?
Yeah.
I can't even remember my kids' birthdays, but I remember. I mean, if that kid goes into a first team at 16 and starts playing at an exceptional level, you're going to find it hard to leave him out. You're going to have to obviously manage his games, because load management at that age is very important. But I was telling a bunch of my American friends, I'm like, remember this name, because you don't know him right now, but this player is going to be known by everyone within 2 years.
Yeah, I think so. And I think United should encourage that and everything as well. But I think so. And it is exciting time.
James, this is where a culture of youth academy production and promotion is really, really important. Because what's the odds that Barcelona get a Lamine Yamal and a Lionel Messi, right? I mean, seems a bit unfair. You just had Lionel Messi, genius, and now you're getting another young genius. Why, if the law averages says that he should be somewhere else, because that's not a product of coaching. It's, yes, you can finesse players, but that natural talent. But these players go to football clubs that have a pathway to the first team.
Yeah.
Can you imagine JJ Gabriel at Chelsea?
Where
you just get swallowed up and lost. So Jim Ratcliffe, I think, was a bit out of line when he criticized the academy. And I think he criticized the academy from a financial perspective, saying we should be getting more players that we don't have to buy, without realizing just how hard that is to do.
Yeah.
And how few teams are doing it. But if you look at how United have restructured their staff, James, you've got Travis Binion now up at working with CSGO, doing one-on-ones and stuff. So and JJ Gabriel training with the first team, I think it's really, really encouraging.
Yeah. And of course, United as well, just in line with that, have of course brought in a new hire, which is probably worth discussing at this point on that, because they've brought someone in, again, specifically for the player development of youth, who comes from Man City. And important to note, for what it's worth, because I saw a little bit of confusion about this, that the hire that they've brought in from Man City was not a youth coach at Man City. He was actually head of coaching and head of player development at Man City at the senior level, not at the youth level. And so they've taken somebody who's got a lot of experience in player development and coaching and brought him into United at the youth level to essentially work on that player development. And I think that's an interesting one, because I would say that we've seen some talents kind of in the last some years maybe stall a little bit, if you know what I mean. Like there's been some talents where it's been, oh, that's exciting. And then they hit like that 16, 17, 18 range. And then you go, what happened? And then they just sort of stall out. And it doesn't mean because they went somewhere else afterwards and they didn't make it that they were never a great talent. It's just, it's such that point, 17, 18, 19 years old, is so massive. And for a long time, United were really poor at loans. They were really poor at getting players out.
Yeah.
They were really poor at getting players in the
They
first
really
team.
were.
And you saw a lot of players stall there, and then their careers go away. And you look at them and you go, well, you take like a Mason Greenwood or a Kobbie Mainoo. They got into the first team and started playing at the right time. They didn't stall in the under 21s for 2 years, not playing men's football. And then you look at the ones that did go out on loan, like Ahmad at 19 or whatever, and went on a couple of loans, comes back, and then it's working. Like they've got it. There's a point where you've got the decisions that get made in that 17 to 19 bracket have a huge impact on how they develop as a player and what happens in the course of their career. So I think that's what they're looking to kind of address with this, is, to improve upon those areas of, development. There's other players like Bendito Mentato, who's kind of, I feel, in that zone where he's maybe stalled out a little bit because it was exciting into the first team, even played a few minutes on the preseason tour, and then you're like, well, what happened? You know what I mean? I'm not saying bad. I'm not saying he's not going to make, because he's still at the under 21s level, and it's not always a straight line, but you want to make sure guys like him, like Cheeto, that there is something happening there, and that the right decisions get made.
If you think about it in life, Ginsey, right, that 16, 17, 18, 19, that is the most volatile period of a young man's life.
Yeah.
There's so much happening there, right?
Yep.
And a lot of that development is beyond your control, because there's environmental influences, factors, there's, a lot of it. What you're really doing at 16, 17, 18 is the way you've been raised all of a sudden starts to come in to play. Because at that age, every age up till 16, 17, you're playing segregated sports, right? You're playing against kids your own age, your own body type. All of a sudden now you're playing against me. Plus, when you get to an academy, or you get there at 16, a lot of them are getting there earlier, but a different dynamic happens. Whenever you're playing youth football, before you get to an academy, you're typically the best player on the pitch.
Yeah.
And you're the one that everyone's deferential to, you're the first name on the team sheet, all this. Then you get to the top of a pyramid where you're playing against players that are exactly the same. And now it becomes mental. What was your upbringing like? Were you raised in, drug abuse, alcohol abuse, verbal abuse, poverty? This obviously, not every individual reacts to this the same, but then their inner dialogue, how much do you trust yourself? And that is a massive factor, man. Plus the physical changes, you're changing from boy to man, and then these kids get money, and having money at 17, 18, being at a club like United or Premier League. I mean, man, you need to have unbelievable self-control and the right environment around you. If you're a kid that's not from England and, or the UK, Ireland, whatever, where you're in a different environment, I mean, it's a miracle to me that these kids are able to do that. And they're able to have a sense of discipline and become professional football players. I think so much of that is about how you manage people and how you give them the confidence to succeed. And I genuinely think so much of youth football none of it is designed with the kids' best interests at heart.
For sure. Agreed.
It's designed by adults that serves adults' ego. Like, I believe with youth football teams, the first 2 years, 3 years shouldn't be about any competition. Imagine if I go and want to learn how to play the trumpet. And on day one, they say to me, all right, go, you're in the orchestra. Yeah, I don't know how to play a note yet.
Yeah.
And now you get really self-conscious because your mistakes are noticed.
Yep.
If you give kids, put them in futsal, give kids, the ability to develop a technical skill set, because you don't do that in competition, because it's, everything is primed towards just winning, right? I think if you give kids the ability to develop a baseline technical skill set, then apply it in games, we're going to get much better outcomes. But same with participation trophies. Kids didn't ask for participation trophies. That was adults. My kids' drawers are filled with medals they didn't win, and they're a simple McDonald's Happy Meal. But the ones that they, Happy Meal toy, but the ones that they did win are on their wall. I don't think that it negatively affects kids. I think that it's by parents. But I think that's now with kids only playing, in structured training sessions and games, you lose so much.
For sure. I agree.
JJ, Shea Lacey is back.
Yeah.
Not injured. Great. So United have a bit of a problem on the left, James, with Cunha. Cunha, exceptional player, but he's not a winger, right? United, Michael Carrick was on record saying that United need to, left wingers is a huge possibility. Probably United, I'm almost certain they'll do that in the summer. Shea Lacey is similar to JJ Gabriel in the sense he's also a street footballer. He was brilliant when he came on against Villa, played on the right. Do you think it's a possibility we could see Shea Lacey?
Yeah, I mean, I think he'll hopefully come back to the first team. I mean, I think that one of the things that I think objectively from the Newcastle game, I'm still scratching my head a week later, was the substitution of Tyrell Malacia onto the pitch. When you had, and it's not to hate on Tyrell Malacia, but he's not played football at this club in years.
No, it's unacceptable.
You know what I mean? It was the strangest substitution and lost us the game in the end.
Yeah.
It's just, it dropped us a point at the minimum, when we had still had a chance to win. When you had young Aiden Heaven on the bench, who's played a lot, who should have come on for sure. But more options on the bench would be better. I mean, we've talked about this earlier in the season, and I think it still holds true for Carrick. We'd rather see some of these young talents be on the bench, getting their chances in these types of situations than players who have no future at this club. Tyrell Malacia is also a free agent in 3 months. There's no reason for him to be playing in the squad. There's just no reason, So I hope someone like Lacey comes in and takes his place in the squad. You know what I mean? I mean, maybe when some injuries return, it happen anyways. But I do hope that, because I think it's the right thing for the club, and I think that in situations where you're up a man chasing a win, that's what you want to bring on. Ruben Amorim got a lot of criticism for it. I think it was the one very objective thing that Carrick did very wrong in that instance, was that substitution in that game. But yeah, I would like to see Lacey in the team and getting minutes when we're going after a game and we need an attacker, a forward. You can do lots of things. You can throw Ahmad to the left and move Lacey to the right. There's many different things that could be done in that instance, just with more options. But I think he showed in those brief cameos that he can do something. He's got a rocket, and he can hit the ball. And sometimes that's all you're looking for, someone to make something happen. And that's often what youth players can do. Maybe they're not ready for the whole 90-minute swing of the game, up and down, but in those moments, when we play Aston Villa at the next game, when they're settled in, when they're going to be, that's where he played then. He almost scored. He almost got us in that game. Those are moments where, 80 minutes in, boom, throw him on 10, 15 minutes, go try and get a goal and see what happens. So, yeah, I'd like to see him there.
Just a quick caveat on Tyrell Malacia, because undoubtedly, there was other options available to Michael Carrick, but I think Michael Carrick is entitled to expect that a professional footballer goes on the pitch and doesn't do that. I think that you can argue, obviously, Kakanke was there, and, Aiden Heaven was there. But I'm not being dramatic, James, but what Taimalasi did should have been a sackable offense. Right? I mean, the way he made zero attempt to defend, he could have closed that ball down before it even got there. Maguire could have caught Osula, but rightfully expects Taimalasi as a left back who has legs, who obviously he wanted to leave in January, which United didn't allow him. I hope when he got in the changing room afterwards, the players absolutely rinsed him. That was unacceptable. A complete dereliction of your most basic duty on a football pitch. He didn't defend. And then when you have somebody who is unwilling to do that and do the bare minimum, you're worse off than what you would be with 10 men, because at least someone else takes responsibility and goes and does it.
Correct.
United should have sacked Taimalasi after that game. I would have turned around and, wait, 3 months? Are you going to play this guy again?
Yeah, what's the point, right?
I would have just turned around and said, son, don't come back. Right? I mean, that is an insult, James, to the football club, to the people who paid, plus the kids that aren't getting in the team as a result of this. So really, really disappointing. And, it's, what about young Diego Leon? Is he anywhere close to getting, because it seems like James, what is he, 19 now, Paraguay? Talk about needing a loan. That kid would probably need a loan. I don't get to watch enough of the under 21s, and I didn't. Obviously Harry Moss get injured. So it's something that to me, United need a right back this summer. I think that if you look at the players,
I agree with you.
I think that's one of the players. But with one of the things that was a bit concerning about Newcastle, James, is this is what this team looks like playing 2 games in a week. And then I think was how slow and ponderous they were. I think that they badly need obviously squad additions, but left back might be something. I know Luke Shaw has been in the virtual ever present, but that'll not be the case next season. And losing Lissandro, another left-sided player, I think had a huge impact on that result. But
of course, Patrick Dorgu being out as well. I mean, if Dorgu is around, then I would hope.
What's his?
Is he a winger? Yeah. Well, but my hope is that he gets that shot at left back in the back four, because he's yet to play as a fullback in this back four. He only played the 2 games at left wing before getting injured. And I understand it might have helped us having him as a left-footed player on that left side. But at the same time, I look at him and I go, I feel like what United have missed quite a lot in the last few games. One of the biggest problems we've had is that none of the fullbacks really can attack. Luke Shaw used to be one of the best attacking fullbacks in the league, but obviously his body cannot handle up and down. That's why he was at center back when we were in the back 3. That's why when we're playing in the back 4 now, he's very often settled deep, kind of still in a back 3 at many points in time. Dalot and Mazraoui, for the qualities that each have, which is a little different, neither of them are particularly good in the final third, attacking, flying up the pitch, getting good balls into the box. It's very questionable there. So I look at Dorgu and I don't think he's like the best winger. He's not the guy who's taking a man on, constantly dribbling, that type of player, but he's got a lot of pace. He's very physical. And I think if you look at him as an attacking fullback, I think that's where his potential is the highest for me. Where I'd like to see him gets hopefully some minutes soon under Michael Carrick at that fullback position, because I think he could be the answer there. He's got so many qualities. I think a fullback suits it better than it does a winger for him, because he's not as much. It's just a bit different. And I think he's one of the only players we have in the team that can get up and down the whole pitch, and with pace, and that matters there.
James, you want to see the difference in someone when you put them in a position and a place that they absolutely belong in, right? Yeah. Where everything, but like myself going to a strip club, just everything, right?
Just right, suddenly in the world, right?
Just boom, a master of work, right? Just go at it. Let me show you the difference, right? Between this and You're going to the in-laws, master at work. So no, when we talked about Ruben Amorim talking about his anxiety, right? Then we saw a completely different footballer when he was in advanced positions.
Yeah.
And you're looking at a skill set, and I've been thinking about it and going, he looked like a player that didn't want to defend. And forward players don't want to defend, right?
Yeah.
I mean, they're just terrible at it. And when I was watching him, how many times he wasn't closing down players, were giving them time on the ball, doing the ugly dark arts of defending. And I was quite harsh on him in my assessment of him as a football player, because this is what I'd seen. Then when he plays in an advanced position, I think he played on the right against Newcastle, didn't he? And then he got switched at half time. Players playing well, can't have that. Then that period under Carrick and Fletcher where he became such a key transformational player. I don't know what that kid's best position is, but I like him in advanced positions because you're quite right. He did offer United an attacking dynamic that they don't have.
Yeah.
Diogo Dalot is not going to become a better football player. Diogo Dalot lacks key fundamentals that are so infuriating in games where you're drawn or you need a goal and he misplaces a 5-yard pass or, picks the wrong pass. He doesn't deliver quality. And I think that might have to have a conversation about Mazraoui because this has not been a good season for him. And James, the other one, United really have to think about this summer's Mason Mount. Mason Mount is such a disappointment. Excellent football player. But when you have a small squad, you can't have a player that's out injured constantly. If United got a decent offer for him, let's say someone came in and offered 15, 20 million for him. He's obviously a much better player than 15, 20 million. You have to take it.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, I think the problem you have with Mount is who's going to pay money with his injuries right now. He's on pretty significant wages, over 200,000 in wages for a player that's injured all the time. So you have the same problem like you had with, not the same problem, actually. I don't want to call it the same problem, but like when you take Marcus Rashford, he goes on loan, of course, to Barcelona in a large part because you have a lot of wages there and they're looking at, get the costs down over time, agree to a smaller contract for Mason and then buy him, which will happen. And it's great for Mason Mount. Different kind of problem, but you also have this wage thing where what club is going to pay those wages right now in his situation? What club is going to buy him for 20 million and pay, because this is a lot, we got to bear in mind, like 10 million a year in wages. Most clubs don't pay that type of money. You're talking about you're narrowed to a very select few who are not buying injured players. They're not. Marcus Rashford was fit. Marcus Rashford was healthy. Marcus Rashford was ready to go. Mason Mount is not. You can't rely on him getting on the pitch. It's a big difference, right? So I don't know who's going to take him in that sense. The best bet might be a loan, with partial wage coverage. And then he has a year remaining after that. And then the next summer you could sell him because then with a year left, it's easier to assuage those types of financial issues.
It's just so tragic, James, because you're looking at a player that wants come to Manchester United, a player that every manager who's ever had him, waxes lyrical, even Ruben Amorim, loved him. And you saw certain glimpses at moments in his United career where you thought, if we can keep that lad fit, he adds an important attacking dimension. Was it City was the last game he played?
I want to say it was
the goal that was disallowed, remember?
Yeah. I want to say so. And then he had a little issue,
What's keeping him out right now?
A calf injury. I think he's had this before. It's like one of those little soft tissue ones that just
non-impact injuries, James. When you start getting those injuries and they accumulate, the second and third order effects from that, you're hard to predict, but they're almost all linked. You need to have a similar uncomfortable issue with De Ligt that's going to have to be looked at.
I was going to bring that up as well.
And again, incredibly tragic, where you see players with enormous, who could be enormously effective for United, constantly injured. And this is something that in United's defense, I mean, look, Delict was someone that, well, not in their defense, you could really look at Delict and Mason Mount and go, neither of these were, in constant injuries, were entirely unpredictable and couldn't be foreseen.
But De Ligt has not played in since Crystal Palace on November 30th. Like, it's been 4 months and you're hearing nothing. Really, like every time you're getting an ask, it's a vague answer, like keeps having pain, and he's got one of these back issues it's so hard to know and predict what's going to happen in the future on that. And it does make for an interesting kind of discussion this summer, because obviously United need midfielders. We know that already. They're going to sign a couple midfielders, if not more. But then you led to some other questions, and things like the Patrick Dorgu question has to be answered, because if Patrick Dorgu's not a left back and he's a winger, then why are you buying a winger? Because you need a left back. And if Patrick, and that's kind of what leads me to believe they see the future at left back is the targeting of a winger doesn't really make sense if you have Patrick Dorgu, because you need a left back more. You've only got the one in Luke Shaw, and you don't know how long that's going to hold up for. So I think you've got to hopefully answer that question or clear it up before the end of the season.
I know what you were saying, James, about, you know, the way he's been deployed at left back. He's never impressed me at left back, I'll be honest. He's impressed me higher up the field.
But and what I'm looking at is the team dynamic, right? Of like, we need an attacking fullback on one side. So, you know, accept the weaknesses and say, okay, you know, Dallo Mazraoui, I think, makes a very good player when when he played at right center back. I thought he was a lot better than when you're asking him to go for Mazraoui, for example. Like, when he plays in the back line, I like Mazraoui. So if you're gonna shift it the other way, where Dorgu's your left side fullback, like going forward, bombing forward, you know, doing that. And I think from a team dynamic, that gives you more, because I don't want to see Dallo keep running up the pitch on that right side attacking. It's going to give me an aneurysm. So, you know, that'll work for me. But I'm saying either way, you have to answer it. But if he's a winger, you still need you need a left back. Either way, they've got to sort that question out. But I think the center back situation is something that flies under the radar, but it's a bit of an issue. You know, United have
James, his contract's up.
Yeah, you know,
in Greece.
But yeah, but maybe you get a year from Maguire, and I'm a huge fan of Harry Maguire and how he's come back. He's been exceptional. Amazing. He also has injury issues just from age and all of that and wear on his body. Like, you're not going to rely on 2 games a week next year. United get into Europe, which is almost a sure thing, and they'll be in the cups again. You can't rely on Maguire. De Ligt, may not even play before the end of the season at this point. Who knows? You know, Lissandro has his injury issues from the major knee surgeries. That's just a fact. He's missed a lot of games. Lenny Yoro, I think, has a lot of potential, still very young, and the same goes for Aiden Heaven. So what looks like a big group of center backs is not actually, when you put it in the sum of its parts, it's a lot smaller for 2 games a week. I think they need someone there pretty bad, actually.
No, I agree. I also think that Lenny Yoro, excuse me, is a different player when he's playing on the right-hand side of the defense than playing on the left-hand side. You know, I think that United need another left-footed centre-back. Obviously, how they finish will determine their budget and will determine what they can and can't do. United will get decent money for Marcus Rashford, for Rasmus Højlund, hopefully Onana as well. And I think that would significantly increase, obviously, the budget, but give United the opportunity to bring in quite a few players, because since we're talking about Casemiro going, Ugarte, I would imagine, will leave the football club at the end of the season. And if you're replacing those 2 with 2 others, that's not enough, because the squad is thin as it is. So now you're going to need obviously emerging players from the academy. But, you know, I don't think United can lose 4 and bring 4 in. You know, they need to bring in a bit more depth in than that, because one of the problems that you see with Carrick is, as soon as you get injuries, the drop off in quality is so significant that leads to inconsistency. So, you know, Andy Mitten was saying that United are looking at midfielders in Spain, which I think they're looking at that going, Premier League players cost an enormous amount of money.
Yeah.
And I think looking at that, bringing in players from Spain, it's a risky thing to do, but I just don't think United want to be buying Baleba and want to be buying Elliot Anderson from Premier League football clubs and paying, or Adam Wharton and paying that enormous fee. I mean, you might get Wharton out at a decent price, but the other two, I don't know. I think we've got a couple of questions, Jamesy, that we can get to. Anything else before we get to them?
No, that would be good. Let's do that.
So I'll get to Reese. First of all, Reese, MUFC 1984. Follow and appreciate the message. If United do qualify for the UEFA Champions League, do we have other targets that haven't been reported? Which is a decent question, because obviously you're going to have, the benefit of Champions League, and I would imagine United are working off a priority list A if everything goes according to plan, and priority list B.
Of course. Yeah, of course. They're going to have a lot. I mean, just for anybody who doesn't know, the way that it tends to work is this time of year, they're trying to narrow down probably a list of 12 or 15 players that we're not hearing all about. They're going to narrow a list of 12 to 15 down to 4, like 4 main guys that they're going to be looking at. And then they'll still keep some others as like alternates, because you may not get even your top 4. It happens. It really depends where you finish, what happens with those players, where the budget stretches. There's definitely going to be names that we've not really seen reported yet. I mean, I cover on some of my content, like tons of names, because I tend to get some decent info on like scouting. So I can make a list of 20. They might be on there, but it may be in terms of who's the main target. Right now you hear about Anderson, you hear about Wharton, Baleba, and there might definitely be others who are somewhere else on that list that come into more of a frame as priorities as we move closer to summer, depending on where we finish and what happens. If Elliot Anderson commits to City, and if, Wharton is going to somewhere else, if Madrid buys someone and then someone else pops available, like Camavinga, it changes the way that things go in that. So certainly I would expect there's a couple of surprises over the next few months. We'll start hearing, hey, this guy's a major target.
Valverde, please.
That would be impossible, but yeah, I agree with you.
I don't know, man, because I think Real Madrid, they might move.
They're in a bit of a transition right now, so you never know.
Many Camavinga,
Valverde,
I think they might move one, or would consider selling one of those. I would have loved to have got Camavinga. Okay, Jason Anderson writes, is it a long-term view of the club to use Lausanne as a loan destination? It seems like a good competitive league for young players to develop. Both kind of Biak and Kone should stay there another season. I don't think Kone's getting in the team, is he?
He didn't get registered for the European, which was a bit of a weird one, and I know the club were disappointed about that. But he did play now 5 games.
Be disappointed, James.
It's weird, isn't it? Like
surely that's not an unforeseen development. I mean,
it is weird, right?
Yeah,
I mean,
but
he has played 5 games of the last 6 in the league. Now he's not starting, but he's come on as a substitute in all of those games now. So I mean, look, it's men's football. This is his first taste of men's football, so that's good. That's fine. And yes, I do think there is an intention to hopefully use Lausanne for this, because it is a good spot for loaning young players and giving them a chance at men's football. For sure it is.
James. You look at Strasbourg, you look at the City Football Group.
Yeah.
One of the things that Pep Guardiola was saying about young players is what's killing them is they're playing in front of 10 men and a dog. Right?
Yeah.
They need to be in competitive environments where there's pressure to win, pressure to perform. Where if you're in Kone, what was it Rangers he wasn't getting on?
Yeah, Rangers, yeah.
You have playing, so now you're putting someone under pressure and saying, how do you respond to that? Are you going to fight for your plays? Or are you going to do a Garnacho? Or are you going to blame I think these are very important when we talk about a loan. Even when a kid isn't playing, sometimes that loan is beneficial because they're learning other things, and you learn to appreciate Manchester United. So very important to me, you have another level in between the under 23s or under 21s to the first team. The drop off is massive. Bob writes, is Nagelsmann a contender for our next manager?
Yes, in a sense. I think the question you have to ask with a few of these coaches, which has already kind of been answered, like with Thomas Tuchel and Ancelotti, where they extended their contracts with the national team, is not are we interested in them, but would they be interested in us? Because we've had that problem, actually, funnily enough. The United job is not necessarily one everybody wants to take, even though it's high profile and all of that. Nagelsmann's obviously German manager, a lot of coaching in Germany, German national team.
Yeah.
Does he want to step away from that and join United? They talked to him before, and the answer at that time was not really. I don't know. I honestly, for myself, can't say. It's not a question of do we like him. Vivell knows him very, very well, does absolutely like him, and I'm sure has put him forward. But would he want to leave the German national team mid-contract and join us after the World Cup? I have no idea.
39? Is he?
He's young, yeah. Nagelsmann is quite young. Yeah.
At 28 years of age, he gets the job at Hoffenheim. Yeah. So 28 years of age, he gets the job at Hoffenheim. Then goes to Bayern Munich. Hadn't won a trophy in his career before he goes to Bayern Munich. The type of swingers, the type of balls you need to do something like that and succeed, Bayern Munich is an extremely difficult club to be successful at because it has similar dynamics to United. You have, all these key massive figures involved, Uli Hoeneß, you have people that, you've got all these legends on TV. They're constantly, assessing you, constantly micromanaging you. And he was succeeded at that. He understands, he because of his experience, he's able to recognize things that maybe Ruben Amorim wouldn't have been able to recognize where this is going to be a problem. Thomas Tuchel turned down United because wasn't getting the type of control. I think Vivell really likes Nagelsmann, but Nagelsmann has enough experience to know this is what I want to be successful. And, United are going to have to, when you go for managers at that level, they're not willing to compromise on key issues. Okay, what is one or two others and then we're done. Let me see, Matty 89. Do you think the noise about not rushing into keeping Carrick is something to do with Ineos team not wanting to be seen just repeating Ole appointment?
I think the question they're trying to ask there is like, are they just saying we're not rushing and they're intending to hire him? No, I think that I wouldn't say that that's not a consideration, right? But I think that they genuinely don't want to make a hire after 9 games. I think they do genuinely want to see how the rest of the season goes because, listening to some other people is the same as I've heard. I don't think Carrick has the job. Like, I don't think it's like just saying, oh, we don't want to, we're going to keep it quiet because we don't want people to think we rush. No, he doesn't have the job. We could have there's still 9 more games. We could have a bad back half of these 9 games. And it could go horribly. We just lost to 10 men. I'm not saying that means Carrick doesn't have to, I'm not doing that overreaction, but it's like, if you were to continue to get results like that, you wouldn't have the job.
Of course.
So it's going to be based on that. And it's also going to be based on, as far as I know, conversations that'll probably happen during this 23-day layoff that we have with other potential coaches to see where are they at? Are they interested? Who's actually, could they even put on our list to compete with Carrick and then figure it out from there?
Look, I think it's healthy that Michael Carrick doesn't have the job yet.
Yeah.
Right? Because it also puts him under pressure.
Yep.
And it's okay to learn from past mistakes. If there is a bit of a hangover from what happened with Solskjaer, why do we need to rush? Why do we need to make this decision right now? Let's see what happens, because Michael Carrick is faced with the question. We don't know how he's going to answer it yet. How do you react to defeat?
Yeah.
Right. And it's important we got the answer to that question before you give him the job. So I think he doesn't have the job yet. And I don't think he needs to have it yet. I mean, you look at the exodus of City coaches, does it lead you to believe that maybe Pep Guardiola is not going to be here next season? I don't think that's affecting the recruitment either way. Because, if Elliot Anderson wants to go to Manchester City, allegedly that's a pretty advanced deal. I don't know whether it is or it isn't, but let's assume that it is.
We've heard that it is anyway. Yeah.
Pep Guardiola is not, Pep Guardiola might not be there next season, but that's not affecting how Elliot Anderson makes his decision. So Last one, Model Citizen. This is my burner account. What's point of view on all the noise around academy players going away now that Cubby, but nobody else gets minutes? Well, I mean, first of all, very, very hard to get young players into your team at this level. I know we want to see young players getting games, but this is one of the consequences of getting knocked out of cups. Is that very little room to be able to do that. But we have seen, young Jack Fletcher, get some game time. We mentioned earlier, Shea Lacey against Villa. I still think before the end of the season, you will see more of those players.
Yeah.
And we have to find out what academy players are in a position to be considered for the first team next season before you need to go out and buy. But I think it's not that easy to get them on the pitch.
Yeah, and I think part of that question is that, when Ruben was here, there was a huge kind of clash about this. Now, we're not really seeing any academy players playing at the current moment besides Kobbie Mainoo. And I think it's for the same reason as essentially before. We need to win games of football.
Yeah.
And it isn't that easy. We don't have a lot of minutes to give up. Do I think that a younger player should have come on? Yeah, but probably Aiden Heaven in the last game, would have been fine. And I do think we'll see a bit more in the future, but I do think some of the noise on the academy stuff was a bit overblown and was a consequence of Kobbie Mainoo not being included in the side, because it made it, it was like a lightning rod for the issue rather than it being about getting a bunch of academy players into the team. That's always hard to do. In any team. It's very hard to do, but yeah, that's my thoughts on it.
I would echo mine as well. So we will go ahead and leave it there. It's been an hour. Thanks to all of you for downloading the pod, as always, for the support, for subscribing. It's the best way you can support myself, James, is subscribe. Go ahead. I say this every week, and I mean it. Go ahead, follow my colleague here. I'd got some exceptional content. It's always good. How long have we been doing this now, TMZ? What?
A couple of years, a few years, hasn't it been? It's like 3 years, I think. Yeah.
It shows.
Yeah.
Absolutely. One of the biggest compliments I have ever gotten is the fact that people will give me an hour or two a week of their time, of all the choices they can make between for entertainment. The fact that people out there are willing to listen for an hour or two. Honestly, wherever you are in the world, I am extremely grateful. We're talking to you directly. I hope these podcasts find you well, physically, mentally, and everything else. Look out for your fellow brothers, because so many people need that support. It's a tough time for a lot of people. And we appreciate all of you listening to the pod. Jamesy, much love, mate.
Yes, you as well. Thank you, everybody.
Much love. See you later, Jamesy. Cheers, folks. Bye-bye.
Bye.